Now, we talked about the Constitution in general. Let's kind of transition to the actual constitutional rights that we're here to talk about. And again, they can be found in the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They were written by? Who were the? Thomas Jefferson. Very good. Let's talk about them in general. Okay, here's amendment number 1. It's probably one of the most famous. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of people, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble or to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What does that basically mean? That we won't have a national denomination. They had just come from Great Britain, and they had a national denomination that they all had to be a part of. So we won't have a national denomination, nor will the government tell us our method of worship, how the worship will occur. That doesn't mean we will not recognize God as the author of freedom. It just means there won't be a national denomination that we all have to be a part of. Does that make sense? That doesn't mean we will have a godless society. That's where their confusion begins. And you obviously know what the freedom of speech is, freedom of the press. Here's amendment number 2, the right to bear arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary to secure the security of a free state or free nation, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So that means what?
You can keep it.
You can have firearms, you can keep and bear arms. So what if the government were trying to take that right away from you? What would you say?
No.
Why?
Huh?
Because it's unconstitutional. Right?
You need the protection.
You need it for protection. What's amendment number 3? It's a really kind of obscure amendment. Here's what it says. No soldier shall in a time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in a time of war, but in a manner as prescribed by law. It's kind of an obscure amendment, but that's what would happen back when they would have wars. The soldiers would actually come and take your home and live there. Here's amendment number 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. What does that mean? It means the government can't just walk into your house and look through it. Or take your car and just look through it, right? That's the protection that you and I have. Where do these rights come from?
Constitution.
The Constitution, the people. We the people. That's where they come from. They don't come from the government. They come from we the people. Amendment number 5 says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. So that's the due process clause. Amendment number 6 is the right to a speedy trial. Amendment number 7 is the trial by jury in civil cases. Amendment number 8 prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. Number 9 is the construction of the Constitution. And number 10 is the power of the states of the people, which I want to read you amendment number 10. This is a debate we just had on in our Texas House and Texas Senate when we just finished with our legislative session. We actually passed this resolution telling the federal government that they had a responsibility to respect the 10th Amendment. Here's what the 10th Amendment says. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. What does that mean? So the powers not delegated to the United States in the Constitution. So the powers not given to the government, nor prohibited by the states, are reserved to the states or to the people. And that's what maximizes your personal freedom. Because there will be people that will argue what the federal government is trying to do in lots of different areas, in the policy area is unconstitutional because it violates the 10th Amendment. They'll say it's not in the Constitution, so the federal government shouldn't be doing it. It's left to the states to do, or left to the people. Does that make sense? If that's the one takeaway you have, It's memorized the 10th Amendment. If the federal government, if it doesn't say the federal government can do it, it's left up to the states, and if the states choose not to do it, it's left up to the people. That's you and I. Now let's talk about obligations. What obligations do you and I have as citizens of the United States? We really kind of talk about it. Y'all have it in your Scout Oath, right? It's in the Pledge of Allegiance, some of the obligations we have. But name some of the obligations we have as U.S. citizens. We have these rights over here, right? We have these rights, but we also have these obligations. Because remember, with every right comes a responsibility. You can wave your hands freely, but where does that right to raise your hand, to wave your hands freely, when does it stop?
When you hit someone.
When you hit someone else, right? So with every right comes a responsibility. So you've got to use that freedom that you have wisely. Okay, so what are some other obligations that you and I have as U.S. citizens?
Vote.
Vote. Vote. And if you don't like what's going on, vote to change it. Right? Because we have a representative democracy. That means you elect people who sit in your place to go vote for you. So in my district, people have actually voted for me to go sit in their chair. They actually own that chair that I'm sitting in. And I vote for them. I have to think, how would they want me to vote? How do I know how they would want me to vote? How do you think?
Wisely.
They would vote wisely, but how do I know how they'd want me to vote? What can they do?
Keep it good.
Huh?
Keep it informed.
They can keep informed. You know what? They write me, they call me, I send out surveys. That's how I know how they would vote. And that's how I vote. What are some other obligations we have? Vote.
To get an education.
To get an education, right? Because you want to be a contributing member to a society. What's another obligation?
Volunteering.
Volunteering. That's great. Volunteering. So volunteer your time, talent, and your treasure. What's another obligation? What was that?
To pay taxes.
To pay taxes. That is an obligation. What does the Bible say? Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. But to me, if 10% is good enough for the Lord, why is 10% not good enough for government?
Because government's not God.
Well, that's a good point. But you guys will have a fuller understanding of what that means when you start paying federal income taxes. And you're required to pay about 40% of your income back to the government. And then when you add in local taxes and state taxes, it comes to about 50%. So 50 cents of every dollar you earn is taken by government, roughly. What are some other obligations? Just 2 or 3 more, and then we'll be done.
To obey the law.
To obey the law? That's right, to obey the law. And if you don't like the law, try to change it. Try to change it in a peaceable way. What's another obligation?
To work in like a firefighter or something.
To what?
To be a soldier. Yeah.
Ah, that's good. He said to defend your country if you need to. That's right. To give your life, your very last breath, if you need to. That is an obligation that we have. One more obligation. You guys get it.
Like citizen's arrest?
Citizen's arrest?
Maybe.
Well, you can make a citizen's arrest. That's for sure. Let's do one more obligation. Believe me, I would have liked to have made some citizen's arrests before. Driving here, there was a bus in front of me. I'd like to have arrested the driver. Anyway, what's one more obligation that we have? Because we have all these freedoms over here.
Don't murder.
Don't murder. Well, we have an obligation, that's exactly right. Not to murder one another. Well, anyway, that's our discussion really on constitutional rights. I just want y'all to take away a few things. Where do rights come from? Do they come from the government?
Yes. No.
No. Who do they come from?
People.
Can they be taken away by government?
No. Yes, they can try.
They can try, but they can't because they come from the governed, the people, right? And if you don't like the direction your country is going, or your state or your city, what should you do?
Vote to change it.
Vote to change it. Now, on the obligation side, what's 1 or 2 or 3 obligations you and I need to practice? To vote, pay taxes,
And obey the law.
obey the laws. Very good. You guys have it. Y'all are a great group. and hope y'all enjoyed this little discussion on constitutional rights and our obligations, because I sure did.